Welcome to the No Budget Independent Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. Will you agree with our panel, or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. I am Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, are my excellent co-hosts Claire Milan.
Hello.
And Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
All right,
I
folks.
think that was the best introduction you've done ever.
Was it?
It's like finally getting into this video. Only took a year and a half.
Sounded enthusiastic and everything. Excellent. Great. You know what I'll do? I'll just record that little clip, and then I'll just reuse that over and over again. All right. This week we are watching a film called The Color of Your Lips, or Le Color de tes lèvres. Right? Does that sound good?
Sounds kind of Mexican, your accent.
Oh, well.
It's Spanish. Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. Well, anyway, that film, Color of Your Lips, sometimes spelled C-O-L-O-U-R and sometimes spelled C-O-L-O-R, depending on where you're looking at it. It's made by a writer and director named Annick Blanc, who is French-Canadian for sure, probably. And the film stars Alexis Levovsky and Katia Levovsky, and they are the two remaining people in a world that has suddenly, inexplicably become unbreathable. So the film opens with Alexis, who plays the diver, who is a scuba diver. He gets out of the water, he takes his scuba mask off, and suddenly he can't breathe. Puts the mask back on, he can breathe again. So he realizes that the air, for some reason, is unbreathable. He starts, wandering around with his scuba tank and trying to figure out what's going on, and sees dead people on the place. And he comes across a woman played by Katia, who is on a oxygen tank. So she's got an oxygen mask on her face, and that's how she's able to breathe. And so we follow the two of them in this world where, for some reason, everybody's dead because, for some reason, the air no longer is breathable. And what's going to happen to the two of them as they run out of oxygen, which they will inevitably do. So it's really interestingly done. There's no dialogue in it because they can't speak to one another. They have to communicate through gestures and actions and expressions, which is really nicely done. The locations, I think, are really nicely done. It's kind of an interesting concept of a short film. It definitely works, I think, as a short. I don't see how you could turn this into a feature, but in that conflict that kind of arises because at first they've got this, we're the last two people together. Let's band together. But then, well, wait a minute, we're running out of oxygen. So, is that necessarily the best choice?
So this film, I watched it earlier, and it really freaked me out. And but it because it just the premise of it, but it's really clever as well. And because the fact he comes out of water, he was almost like, I thought he was going to turn into a fish or something. Do you know? I thought it was something like that at the start. And it's fascinating that the air we breathe, like they need an oxygen tank. And I thought that was a fascinating premise. And there's no words in this film. It was all done through the actors. But one thing that stood out for me was the cinematography was phenomenal. I absolutely thought it was one of the best cinematography films I've seen in a long time. And also the colors in it, and like the color grading and the shadows, and yeah, it works so well. But yeah, it definitely left me with the very eerie feeling. Like, I wouldn't be a massive fan of dystopian films, but I have to disagree with you, Milo. I think this could be a feature film. You could turn it into that. Obviously, more could happen in it, but there were some beautiful moments in it as well. And it does make you think, especially because we're in COVID times, where breathing, it's not something we take for granted. And then you see the oxygen tanks and they're running out, and there's like a love story as well there. And it was, yeah, the fascinating premise with really beautiful, really suitable cinematography for this. It was really high. It's a really high quality film, and really enjoyed it.
Yes, I was going to make that point about the cinematography was, really, really good. But I only properly appreciated it, I'd say, when I watched it again. I watched it a second time. The first time I saw it, I found it a bit problematic in a way, because I know with films, even dystopian films, like there's a certain suspension of disbelief involved. But I just thought in some ways that the characters, that their behavior, their reaction wasn't totally rational. Like, for instance, the guy scuba diver on that opening shot was really good coming out the water. But then when he's kind of walking along the road and he comes across the car, I just told myself, why doesn't he take the car? You know,
I can
like,
answer that
go on.
because you need oxygen for your engine to run. The
Oh.
fuel firing for the engine, you can't burn without oxygen.
Oh,
Well, but they
there you
did,
go.
they did sort of use the other car later on, didn't they?
Yeah, well, the electric car.
Was that electric?
Yeah, her little golf cart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have occurred to me at that moment, Like, you'd be like,
Uh-huh.
oh my God, yeah, there's no oxygen, And actually, we don't know that there was no oxygen. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's true. There's just something in the air that was
yeah,
not. Yeah,
something in
exactly.
the air, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like he's dragging around his trolley, wasting more oxygen. And then, like, even sort of when he meets the sort of woman and they go to town and they try, dialing 911 and so on. But I mean, there doesn't seem to be any attempt to find out what's happened. Like, no television, no radio, nothing. They just seem to kind of give up. Let's go and sit on a hill. I'm saying that, like, there was, as I said, like, the cinematography was really good, and like there was some nice little touches to it. Some subtleties there. For instance, when they are sitting there, like, he's kind of looking at these fortune cookies, and you don't actually see what they're written, but you can imagine it's something, like, something good is going to happen,
Yeah.
throws it away, like, ironically. And then there was kind of a nice touch when she sees his oxygen tank, and then she kind of sees us come down, and she sort of offers hers. And I did like the end, that kind of conflict. This, first of all, they are finding each other, in this moment of this death crisis, but then the human instinct, the worst part of human instinct kind of kicks in. So it's sort of damning and redemptive at the same time.
It's interesting because I'm surprised neither of you mentioned this kind of weird aspect was the fact that he wore his diving goggles the whole time.
I
And
did occur to me, yeah.
yeah, that's why I was curious if one of you were going to mention it or not, because that was that
Mhm.
annoyed me. Because why would
Yeah,
he have those on the whole time? I mean, one, they're not that comfortable to wear anyways, and they're not needed. Yet he kept his diving goggles on the whole time, which I thought was kind of ridiculous.
What was he doing, like, at the start? He was coming out of the water. So what was he doing at the start? Was he looking for food? Yeah, and why did he wear why was he wearing those diving goggles as well? That's kind of
did you
crossed my
not have
mind
a,
already.
a net of fish? No.
Did he? I don't remember. I don't
Really?
remember what he was doing, but I don't know. People dive to
Mm.
dive. I mean, to get under the water,
Yeah.
to see stuff, and also, like you mentioned, Carl. Like I kind of been the same thing. Like I wouldn't necessarily have done what they did. I mean, my first thought would be like, how do I get more oxygen, right? So why
Yeah.
not go to your local scuba shop, which clearly he would know where that is, and dig out some more oxygen tanks and fill those up, or the hospital and like that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but instead they're just like, oh well, we'll just sit here and wait for oxygen to run out.
Or even just try and get away. Like, I mean, they don't know idea if this is a localized thing. Now, it seems to be something more cataclysmic, because, like, you can see the windmills blowing. There's obviously a strong breeze, so it's not as if it's kind of a dead air and it's just kind of hanging around. So there is something supernatural almost, about it.
Yeah, I did like too the casting because if this were like a Hollywood type, so if this does get if they did turn this into a feature film, Claire, you would have some
Mhm.
like 20-year-old young hot starlet, and some, wannabe superstar buff dude. And so it was really kind of nice to see, like, because the woman, she's, quite overweight. The guy's kind of got a bit of a nerdy look to him. Like, they're not your like leading act performers type thing, which was really kind of a nice, believable, like you could believe that she would be in an oxygen mask.
Yeah, I love the casting. I thought it was so refreshing to see this because, as you said, if it was a feature film, it would be a hot buff guy in his 20s and a really beautiful girl. Do you know? It's but it's yeah, these actors as well. They really inhabited the parts. Like they're really suitable with the parts, and especially because there's no words. It's all about looks. And at first, I didn't realize that they were a couple. I thought he just was going into a house and going to steal her oxygen, but I think they were husband and wife possibly, but yeah, at first I wasn't sure.
Oh,
Or were they?
I didn't get that. I don't think they knew each other at all until they met in
Oh,
this.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought they knew each other, but maybe they didn't. Yeah.
I have a feeling they didn't. At first, I thought they did, but then I changed my mind because at the end, without giving anything away, she actually takes off his goggles and sees him properly for the first time, so she wanted to see what he looked like.
Yeah.
Um, so I get the feeling that she hadn't done it before, and that was at that point that I thought, actually, why was he wearing goggles the whole time when he didn't need to? But there was something else as well, which I kind of noticed that there was a lot of footage of the dead animals, uh, like the heads of animals, and it was almost like a critique of our kind of cruelty to animals, and that we kill them and then put them up as trophies, and it was almost like this was our getting we were getting our comeuppance. This was the result of a vengeful god, doing this to us because of our treatment of animals.
If that were the case, I would have liked to see the animals living, but all the humans dying.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but it must have happened very suddenly because when they're at the party, like it's like this party is just there are people there who are just like, in the middle of the party, and all of a sudden uh,
Ed?
they're not there anymore. So it sorry, no spoilers. Sorry. And even the music, I love that. The fact the music was still playing at the party. And it was really that time that the music choice really added to that kind of eeriness, dystopian feel of it. It was just really added to the whole atmosphere of it.
And there was also the image of the statue of the Virgin Mary as well. So that was like a reference to kind of religion, I suppose. That where is God now?
Well, let's rate it, guys.
Um, I don't know. I don't have much more to say about it. Like, it was, for me, it did take a second look viewing to kind of get a better appreciation of it. And it is kind of linger with you as well, which is always a good sign. So I'll give it 3.5 stars.
So for me, what really shone was the cinematography. I mean, that they absolutely nailed it. To the cinematography and the color grading and the shadows completely captured this dystopian feel and left you with kind of a very eerie feel afterwards. And also the actors they cast were really terrific, and it was refreshing to see people who weren't Hollywood-esque looking on screen. So for me, it's a 4-star film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I liked the performances, especially the fact that they were able to deliver them really well while having their faces covered most of the time. Yeah, the cinematography was nice, the casting. I don't know, but there's just something about it that I didn't like. And I can't really put my finger on what it is. And because I like dystopian films, maybe it was the fact that they didn't explain what happened that caused the oxygen or air to be unbreathable. I don't know. So I'm gonna do a rare half star and go 3.5.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. No budget Filmcast audience. Check out the film. As always, we throw the link into the notes so you can watch it and then let us know what you think on social media at No Budget Show on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or leave a comment in the comments below if you're one of the people watching this. And until next time, we will see you next time. I got the intro down. Now I need to work on the outro.
Kind of deflated at the end there.
Yeah. Until next time, we'll see you next time. Yeah.